And then we are going to share computer sounds for when we have to do that. Okay. Welcome all to the fourth lesson of How Happiness Thinks. Um, we are very excited to have you. And this is actually my favorite lesson of all. Anyone who's running late will have the lesson recorded, which is great. Um, and yeah, so last week was a really special lesson. We got a chance to go more inwards into ourselves, and this lesson is all about worry. It's actually this is actually my favorite lesson so far, humbly so. Um, who here has not never worried once in their life? No, no one. So obviously, quite a common thing. And worry is, obviously can affect our overall happiness, which is a problem. So, and stress and all these things. But if we can learn to manage it effectively, then we can learn how to encounter these obstacles with the right perspective and be able to, from a, psychological perspective and also from a Torah Jewish perspective, learn how to really encounter these obstacles in the right way and with the right perspective, it can totally change the way we encounter them on a daily basis and everything. So, without further ado, we have a lot to cover, so we're gonna just dive right in. Yep, there you go. From oi to yay, overcoming stress through positivity. Okay, so we're gonna start on page 121 in your exercise book, exercise 1.4, student textbook. And if you'd like to take a couple minutes jotting down the following things, these are four out of the seven questions of a anxiety disorder scale developed by Professor Spitzer. And obviously, we're not calculating anything here. It's just to just get a um, just baseline of how much worry, and also you don't have to share what you answer either, but it's to gain a baseline of how much worry, and then also if you do worry more in one specific area of these four than the other, then you can get an idea of what type of worrier you are. So, hi Tikva, hi Dr. Hernandez, welcome to the Zoom. Thank you so much for being on the Zoom and um, being the co-teacher in order to help us have this class certified. Really appreciate you being on the call. Um, and so we're just doing exercise 4.1. We'll give maybe like 10 more seconds to kind of jot down to figure out what type of worry you are. This is on page 121. We'll do like 10 seconds. And then if you don't get through it all, that's fine. Okay. So the goal is we're going to try to turn everyone from a worrier to a warrior. Um, and hopefully by the end we'll be able to at least have some tools that walk away from that you didn't have before in order to be able to counter these things. Okay, page 122. Let's discuss. If anyone wants to shout out, unmute yourself, feel free to unmute yourself and share. What strategies have you found effective in managing your worries? Um, have maybe I actually would love to hear from the psychologists, Daniel and Dr. Hernandez in the Zoom, if you have um, anything that you advise your clients. It would be interesting to just get a baseline of what you do in the
Sorry. Typically,
yeah.
what I like to do is either I give a Beck anxiety scale just to kind
Mm.
of see, which we call it BAI. It kind of just gives us a perspective of where you are in the range of anxiety
Mhm.
and what number it is. Or sometimes I just ask him from a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is your anxiety? What triggers it? What are some of
Mhm.
the things that are going on throughout your day that you find causes you to worry? Keep a
Mhm.
log of it because I like to know what time of day it's happening. When
Mhm.
is it occurring? Is there a type of a pattern behind it? And it's to
Mhm.
help to kind of identify the underlying reason of what is happening that's causing the anxiety. And then from there, we like to start doing some relaxation techniques. I like to use guided imagery, one of my
Absolutely.
favorites. I have a really great website that I use. Um, one of them is Great Meditations, which I really like on YouTube, which is free. I like to give that to my patients because you don't have to pay for it, unlike Calm, where you do have to pay for it. And the other thing I like to do is Dartmouth University has really great visualization techniques on their site for free as well. And those are
Nice.
the things that I like to use with them.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. Um, yeah, that's great.
And I also advocate prayer for those of my patients who are religious.
That's really.
If spirituality is something that's very important to them and a connection to
Mhm.
Hashem or to whatever religion that they aspire to,
Mhm.
because I work in a secular environment, so therefore not everyone is from.
Yeah,
Sometimes people are Christians, but whatever it is, I tell people if prayer is something that helps you, it's like meditation for them, please do so.
that's great. Yeah, so we're gonna bring a verse from Proverbs to that gives ancient wisdom on how from the biblical perspective on how to deal with worry. So maybe um, Mom, you were the first one on the Zoom, so I'll have you go first. Read text 1A, page 124. Sorry,
Just one
first.
day?
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
very short one, so you got
Excellent.
off
I
the
got
hook
off
easy.
easy here. A
Yeah,
worry in a person's heart, cast it away.
beautiful, beautiful.
Okay.
So so um so it says in Hebrew it's Dagya b'lev ish yashchena. So Zaidi, are you there if you want to read text 1B on page 124?
Um,
It's, you
can you
don't
hear
have
me?
you want me to skip you? That's fine.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Tiff, I saw you posted in the chat. I can't really read it right now, but I'll read it after we have a little bit more of a natural break. Daniel, why don't you read the text 1B, which is a source from the Talmud in Yuma, which comments on the verse. Oh, wait, you gotta unmute yourself. Classic Zoom problem. I don't think it'll ever
Hey,
solve that
Rabbi
one.
Ami Rabbi Yossi Chalamar, Yaschena Midato v'Chalamar, Yaschena Me'acherim. Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi interpreted this verse. One said, cast it from the mind. The other said, speak about it with others.
Yeah, so the word yashchena, I mean, it's a little complicated because the way that the Gemara, a lot of the like, Gemara translations, they vowelize it. It's yaschena versus yasichena. So yashchena literally means just to cast it away. Cast if you have worries, cast it away. If but that's Rabbi Ami. But Rabbi Asi says that you can actually read the same word to mean yasichena. Don't necessarily just cast it away. You should speak about it with others, and through speaking about it with others that will comes with the word sicha. If you have anyone that does the Hebrew. Oh, actually, we have a slide that actually shows that. Let's show the slide. The slide, if you can see, everyone can still see the screen. So yaschana means cast away, and yesichana means to speak. So cast away, talk to a friend. So it does sound like two opposite ideas. Um, but we're gonna see very soon that really we can kind of merge the two into a comprehensive way to help deal with worry. Okay. Question for discussion, page 125. Why does it often help to discuss a worrisome matter with a friend? Anyone chime in on that? Um, why you might think that? If
Sometimes,
not, yeah,
sometimes when you vocalize things, you realize that they're not quite as onerous as you've been churning in your head, right?
that's a very good point.
So
Yeah.
in some cases, you're getting advice,
Mhm.
but some cases it's just that you need to vocalize it so you can be heard.
Mm, very good. That's a very good answer. Anyone else wants to suggest? I will give what the what's answered here. Very beautiful answer explanation given by Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson. Um, on page 125, 1C. Why don't we have Dr. Seamus? You want to unmute yourself and
Sure.
read next 1C?
The Hasidic Rebbe, prolific writer and Jewish activist,
Oh, no,
Rabbi.
no, not his bio. You want to read the
Oh,
actual quote.
oh,
Empathy is worry. The third Rebbe of Chabad.
oh. Empathy is worry. Okay. The third Rebbe of Chabad explained they are others only in the bodily sense. However, they are completely united with you, for they empathize with you.
Yes, very good. So if you want to like look just so for some classic context, um, Rashi on this verse around the Gemara basically gives more of a very simple answer. He says that, when you speak about it with a friend, they might actually be able to give you advice to solve the problem. It's like a very like masculine answer. It's like, oh, you talk to others so you can actually figure out what to do. Um, but the sixth Chabad Rebbe, he says that basically when you have another person that's outside of you, it's really not they seem like separate, but if they're a really true friend, they kind of one with you, especially another Jew that is able to really empathize with you. It's kind of like your souls are merging, and they're kind of taking on the burden, and kind of taking on that burden with you, and through that, it's really able to help overcome that. So you can see in the slide
I
here.
was going to say is,
Yeah.
I've enjoyed hearing about where use the term like the three H's to
Hmm.
ask people, do you want to be heard? Do you want to be helped? Or you want to be hugged? You know,
Mm.
because a lot, and you brought it up, but kind of the mansplaining kind of masculine concept would
Yeah.
be you have to be helped all the time. You give someone something and they expect it. You want an answer or something to solve it, where in a lot of cases people just want to be heard.
Hmm.
They
No,
don't,
for sure.
yeah,
Exactly. And yeah, exactly.
or hugged in a lot of
Yeah,
cases.
exactly. Just to carry on the burden. And that's why, like after, in the Jewish tradition, after someone's suffering the mourning of the loss of a loved one, you'll say, Hamaki minachem eschem, tzeich shar v'yisir in Yerushalayim, that the omnipresence should comfort you amongst all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. So it basically like explains to the mourner, hey, you're not mourning alone. We're all mourning with you, right? We're all in this together. And kind of when you do that, it like really helps lift up the person because we're all, the Jewish tradition teaches that really, especially brought down in the Tanya, that we're really all one soul. Really all one big soul. So when you think about it from that context, that one person suffering, then when we all are able to empathize with that one person, it kind of helps relieve that burden and spreads it to everyone. We're all able to get through it together. Okay, I'm going to read Tifa's comments really quick. Exercise is also very effective in reducing anxiety. That helps me a lot too, for sure. Worrying many times is rooted in what may or may not happen in the future. That's a very good point, and we're actually going to get to that. Remaining in the present can reduce worrying. Yes, yes, yes. Very good. Okay, so basically this point here, the other person body, but united in spirits. That's the idea of this slide. Okay, now next what we're going to do is an amazing. This is a really incredible letter of the third Chabad Rebbe that explains from the Chabad Hasidic philosophical psychological perspective how worry works spiritually in the psyche and from a I guess a soul perspective, and how when you understand that the mechanics, I guess I don't know if to call it metaphysics of it, the spiritual mechanics of how the intellectual soul works, then you can actually, it can be a really great tool into learning how to overcome it. So, which is really great. So this text two is actually, we're splitting up into three parts on page 127. And I guess this is kind of really coming to the point is like, hey, so I need to give a context for the letter. The letter is basically was written by a follower, a devout follower, a chassid of his Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek. Basically, he was all worried. He had all these worries about his health and his financial situation and all these things. And it was a very long letter he wrote to the Tzemach Tzedek, and the Tzemach Tzedek responded with this very beautifully written letter. This is only an excerpt of the letter, but it really provides a great insight into the philosophy, the psychology from a Hasidic perspective on it. Okay, why don't we have Dr. Hernandez? Why don't you go ahead and read 2A? Oh, who else
Sure.
has them?
Fear
Yeah.
for naught.
Yeah.
Regarding your questions concerning fears, although they are over naught, I have not refrained from answering my sharing what's on my heart.
So this is the first little snippet of the letter, which I think is just very beautiful to like notice how he starts the letter in the sense that he first kind of uses that first interpretation of the Talmud that we brought, that you first cast it away. Meaning he's first telling his disciple, hey, your worries are really not, you shouldn't be worrying about them at all. But never, and then after he kind of casts away the worry, then he says, okay, now I'm gonna help work on identifying what really I'm gonna still try to relate to you and where you are in the level you're holding, and to be able to help you overcome it. Okay, who?
And I think that goes into kind of what I was mentioning earlier about that fear of the future, of what may or may not happen. Is like we try to predict what's going to happen. And when we don't know, we start filling in what I call potholes with information we don't have. And all it does is it becomes much worse. And you're reacting, which is where the worrying comes from, for something that hasn't even occurred yet. But you think
Yeah.
it's going to happen. And
Yeah.
that's where a lot of that anxiety and worrying kind of comes
Oh,
in.
you know what? I actually have, there's a funny joke that very that's what's the joke? I think it was printed in here. It's just so funny. It's basically it's like what's I'm gonna find it because it's just so funny. Um yeah, maybe we'll get to it later. Because I don't wanna oh hmm, okay. I'm not gonna ruin it. I'm gonna wait till later to deliver it properly. Okay. Okay, let's go on to Mom. Why don't you read text 2B? I think we're on 2B, right?
Okay,
2B,
yeah.
2C.
Choose
Yeah.
calm. It is
Yeah.
certain that you should ask God for joy, as it is written, cause the soul of your servant to rejoice. Similarly, we say in our prayers, remove gloom and lamenting from us. Nevertheless, there are also fears people trigger themselves, and the choice and authority is given to them to withhold themselves from them.
hmm Yeah. Okay, so I found the joke. So okay, so a neurotic is a person who worries about things that didn't happen in the past, as opposed to worrying about something that won't happen in the future, like normal people. Meaning sometimes we feel like we're so normal because we're worrying about the things that aren't that about things in the future that aren't necessarily going to happen, and like we're calling the person, what we're doing is like almost tantamount to, can be as silly as the person that actually is neurotic. But anyways, I don't know if it actually Zoom jokes don't really work so well. Anywho, because everyone's on mute, so even if you did laugh, I wouldn't hear the laugh. And anyways, okay. Um, so what is this quote saying from the letter? Basically that we have a mitzvah to serve God with joy. And sometimes prayer is not enough. and to recognize that we can control our emotions, but we have to learn how. And we have this beautiful slide. We're not hostage of our emotions. And so last week, do you guys remember from last week the first three levels of the soul? Any chance? If anyone wants, you can unmute yourself.
Bina Chochmah Das.
Yeah, Chachma Bina Das. Yeah, very good. So so in the next quote, text 2C, he's gonna explain how it works. But just to explain outside, how it's gonna work is you have Chachma Bina Das, right? So Das, the third level of the intellect, is the level of the intellect that goes into helps internalize the Chachma, the creative intellectual element, and Bina, the analytical intellectual element, and helps internalize it into our emotions. That's Dat or Das, depending on how you pronounce it. And basically, our intellectual capacity of our soul, which is those three levels of our soul, can either be in an active state or in a dormant state. So usually, most of the time, all of our much of our soul powers of our 10 sefirot, of our 10 soul elements, are in a dormant state. Except when we're actually using it. For example, let's say you're coming up with a creative idea, then your chachma might be activated, or you're being working on a very analytical project, maybe your bina will be activated, right? Worry comes from dot. Worry is dot because worry is basically taking a thought, different intellectual ideas that may or may not happen in the future, and internalizing into our emotions. And so what's the fuel for that dot? The fuel for the dot is our thoughts. Now, thoughts are one of the three garments of the soul. It's considered that thought, speech, and action are different garments of the soul. Why is thought considered a garment of the soul? Because just like a garment you can like take on, take off, etc. So too, our thought, speech, and action, you have the ability to change. You can change this. You can start thinking about one thing and then start thinking about the next thing. So basically, the whole idea is that our thought activates the dot. So all we have to do really is stop thinking about the negative worry, and then once we stop thinking about it, then which we have the power to do, then automatically our dot will go away, and the which means that we won't have as much worry. Obviously, it's easier said than done. So we're gonna go through some options on how to go about that. But we'll read text 2C. It's a little bit of a long one. I don't know who was
Rabbi Kahneman, I agree with
Yeah.
that. There's something called thought stopping that we use in
Oh.
cognitive behavioral therapy, where when you start to get these negative thoughts about what may or may not happen in the future, and then you tell yourself, stop, where's the evidence to support this? And then you turn it around to a thought that's more reflective to what's happening in the here and now, what's happening right now, not what you think is going to happen in the future, but what's happening now. It's very effective thought stopping.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that. Thought stopping. Gotta write that down. Ima, would you like to if you're available now,
What page are we on?
we're on page 129.
Oh, 129. Wow. Okay.
Thought stopping, it's called.
Okay.
It's from cognitive behavioral therapy. It's
Okay.
a very
What,
effective
no, is it
technique.
called? What is it called? Thought stopping?
Yes.
Okay, I just wrote that down. Okay, just wanted to make sure I had it written down right. Okay.
129. Page
Yeah,
129.
page 129, text 2C.
2C.
Yeah. You see it?
Okay, we'll do it later because sorry, that was my patient.
Oh,
Okay. So starting
want-
with
we can-
mind's
yeah.
mind power over emotion, right?
Yep.
But it's starting with each person has three soul garments: thought, speech, and action. That comprise the primary component of human behavior. The choice and power is granted to us to think, speak, and act according to our desires. Even if you are emotionally afraid, you are able to remove your thought, speech, and action from that emotion immediately upon letting go of the thought, the fear will dissolve on its own, just like you were saying.
Mhm.
At
Mhm.
the very least, the fear will become dormant and will not be felt in your body. And over the course of a few days, it will completely dissipate to the point that it will not come up in your mind at all. Removing your thought from the fear will lead to fear dissipation because emotions come from the faculty of da'at by means of thought. Therefore, by removing your thought, da'at is automatically removed from the emotion and it will not awaken. It is appropriate for you to train yourself away from all melancholy. You can remove the fear from your heart even when there is something legitimate to fear. All the more so in your case, in which, thank God, you have nothing to fear at all, whether in matter of your health or finances, etc.
Okay, beautiful. So this is all great. The only one question is we didn't, at least in our text so far, aside from what Tikva shared, like how to actually remove the thought. So it's easier said than done. For example, I want to try to do an exercise. If you guys are with me, unmute yourself. Obviously, if you're not able to, that's fine. But I want you to um, close your eyes. And I want you to not think about a white bear. And the second you think about a white bear, clap your hands. Okay, ready, set, go. Up. Wow, no one's thinking about a white bear. That's pretty good.
I think we were all thinking about the white bear.
Nobody wants to clap because they don't want to admit that they actually
I did clap, but I was on
you're
mute.
muted. Okay. So this exercise was done by a famous Russian novelist, essayist, journalist, and philosopher named Fyodor Dostoevsky. Um, and that's text three. Maybe we'll have Neil. Neil, sorry, you were at the edge of my list of uh, of Zoom guests. Would you like to read text three? Here, I'll ask you to unmute.
Yeah, certainly.
Thanks.
Unwanted thoughts.
Hmm.
Try to pose for yourself this task, not to think of a polar bear, and you will see that the cursed thing will come to mind every minute.
Yeah, so thank you. I appreciate that. So basically, there was a psychology professor that actually tested this out and did an actual experiment with this, and he found that the white bear, the way he did the experiment is he had them all like ring a bell, and basically, the second they saw they thought of a white bear, that they ring the bell, and basically, on average, the participants were ringing the bell at least once a minute on average. And okay, so this is the whole point of this exercise is really to prove the idea that if you're trying not to think about something, then you're just very likely might think about it more. So, what is a better strategy in order to not think about something? Because I guess the one problem with thought, um, like I said before, our soul has three garments: thought, speech, and action. One thing that makes thought more unique out of the other soul garments, speech and action, is that speech and action you can choose to just stop doing it, right? I can stop speaking, I can stop doing an action, and that's all great. But my thought process, it's always has to be thinking about. It's constantly working your thoughts. So there has to be the only way to overcome a negative thought is to think about something else. Um, so that's going to be part of the answer, at least that we're going to give in this course. Aside from, the other therapies that Dr. Hernandez mentioned, the thought stopping exercise and everything, is to really specifically start thinking about something else. When you start thinking about, let's say, a parrot or like an eagle, or I don't know. maybe no, not even an animal. You can start thinking about, um, this course that we're learning, or whatever, whatever other thing that you intentionally try to think about that can be very helpful in helping, especially my kids, like, whenever they're all, get really upset, really frustrated in this really dark, negative space, like the only way I've found is to just like take them out of the situation, put them in a totally new environment, try to change the subject completely and try to get them out of it. So
You want to know how I do it?
how?
I start reading something.
There you go. See, exactly. So you start exactly. So
Yeah, take my
text,
myself out of the situation.
beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So text four, I think it's kind of hard because we're not like all in a physical circle, so it's hard to Dr. Hernandez, why don't you read text four on page 131?
Sure. The primary method of removing negative thoughts from your mind is by directing your mind toward other matters. This can be worldly things if they are necessary and make you happy, and God's Torah, which delights the height by establishing fixed times for daily study, particularly with one another.
Yeah. So this is you know what? I'm actually wondering, yeah, this is actually a continuation of that same letter. So that's the continuation of the same letter from text two, A, B, and C. Um, yeah, so that's really the way that he suggests is to specifically think about other things. And obviously, as a rabbi, will be a little biased to say, to specifically think about Torah or something that delights the heart. In this slideshow, it is a someone painting something, so something engaging. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the next topic. So basically, what we explained so far is that worry comes from das, the third level of the intellect, and by working hard to think about other things and speaking with others, trying to cast away all these different techniques, we can try to remove the worry. But to a certain extent, all of this is really to a certain extent a band-aid because because we don't want to constantly be struggling with worry all the time and to try to constantly be pushing away, constantly have to the ultimate thing would be to not have the worry in the first place, right? So in order to do that, we have to kind of like tap into a little bit of a higher source. So this next section, really, we're going to be talking about a concept called bitachon, which means trust. And what does this mean according to Judaism? And obviously, the most famous psalm in the entire book of Psalms is Psalm 23. I was actually going to do the exercise. I did the exercise in Payson, but I could do it right now if you want. So if you take the dollar bill here, here's a dollar bill. Dollar bill. What on this dollar bill brings happiness? Is there anything about this dollar bill that brings happiness? And if so, what is it? Anyone?
Doesn't it say in God we trust?
There you go. Yeah, I know. I kind of gave it away by the whole introduction I made. And we're gonna watch a really great video about that very soon. But so yeah, why don't we have maybe Daniel, you've been so patient and quiet. Why don't you read text 5 on page 132, which is literally just the entire Psalm 23, which is always a great psalm to read.
Sure.
Famous, the most famous one in the entire book.
A song
So
of David.
yeah.
God is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness, bringing honor to his name. Even when I walk in the valley of darkness, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my adversaries. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of God for my entire life.
Beautiful. So that's a classic. So there's a few things that are very fascinating about this psalm that specifically, King David, who wrote this psalm, was a shepherd. So he knows what it means to be a shepherd and to care for the sheep. But he is using the analogy to treat God as like the ultimate shepherd, in the sense that just like a shepherd cares for his flock, it says that King David, that there's a midrash that teaches that King David would care so much about every single sheep in his flock, even the tiniest like little weakling of a sheep, that he would make sure, let's say you had a field, you had certain plants in the field that only that the big strong ones could eat, but the little weaklings couldn't eat, right? So he would make sure to let the little weak sheep go out first to graze the field and let them take whatever they could eat, and then only then have the stronger, and then go in order of stronger, then to let the stronger sheep and the older, stronger sheep graze the field next, because they're able to eat like the rougher plants. So I mean, basically, they cared so much about every single sheep. So this imagery of of the shepherd is very, very powerful. And so basically, we're coming to the King David comes to the conclusion that God is benevolent, omnipotent, and caring. And this is the basis of his bitachon. So, trusting God. Now, obviously, everyone, depending on what level of religiosity you are, bitachon is a very powerful. Oh, here's the video. Everyone's able to hear the video? Yeah? Okay. Oopa. Did I just miss the video? Oops, sorry. Oh, we got a thumbs up. Nice. Okay.
Can money buy happiness? Not necessarily. It often invites the opposite response. But can money point the way to happiness? If you live in the US, it probably can. Take a peek at the dollar bill. 4 short words tell it all. Interestingly, the psychological effects of trusting God have been probed significantly. Back in 2010, Dr. David Rosmarin, a professor of psychology and widely acclaimed researcher of cognitive behavioral therapy, conducted a fascinating study into the real-life effects of trust in God.
I created a program to help people build higher levels of trust in God.
He specifically chose to test the kind of trust known to traditional Jewish belief as bitachon. Dr. Rosmarin identified spiritual strategies for coping with stress and anxiety. He then designed a program to clinically measure their influence on our natural stress coping mechanism. The 2-week program included materials, meditations, and exercises that nurtured a strong trust in God. He then deployed the program in a study of 120 random participants with reported elevated but subclinical levels of stress and anxiety. Dr. Rosmarin hoped to measure his program against a standard technique. So one group of participants was treated with progressive muscle relaxation, a typical method of stress relief that monitors and controls muscular tension. A second group of participants was provided with Dr. Rosmarin's daily Trust in God program, while a final group was offered no treatment at all. The participants were assessed before and after the program, and then again at a 6 to 8 week follow-up. The results of his study were astonishing. The muscle relaxation technique failed to produce clinically significant results when compared to the results of those who received no treatment at all. But the partakers of the Trust in God treatment scored clinically measurable improvements that were highly significant.
In statistical terms, it was a 2 standard deviation decrease in anxiety and worry over only a 2-week period, which is very, very significant.
And these gains lasted well after the program ended, demonstrating a long-lasting effect. The study indicated that the Trusting God method can be an effective practice for well-being for the global population. So instead of forking out top dollar, many of us could glance at the top of the dollar and remind ourselves that God is on top of things. When we recall where the buck truly stops, we can cash in on the benefits of cultivating confidence in our Creator, whose wealth of caring providence to each individual provides us with the capital for investing in our own state of happiness and calm.
It really provided clear evidence that working on one's faith can reduce levels of anxiety and depression and make things better. Experimental, clinical evidence.
Okay. What do you guys, does anyone have any comments, concerns, suggestions, thoughts, reflections? And if not, I'll share my thoughts on it. Anyways, my personal opinion is I think it's a beautiful study. I think that the study was was interesting, but also very limited. So I think, like, just to be intellectually honest, it's like a test of just testing out 120, 150, I would say 150, 120 students of people. It's not gonna be completely it's not gonna prove anything necessarily, but it is it is a very interesting study. So I think it was just very fascinating that he did it. And basically, I'll try to cover this part outside and instead of reading the text inside because it's just going to take too long. Basically, what he split into three groups. Oh, well, let's read text 6 first because this is so powerful from the Chovos HaLevavos. Maybe Zadi, are you there? Can you unmute yourself? Do you want to unmute yourself? Or Ima? If you are, you want to read text
He doesn't have his glasses on, so I'll do it, okay?
text 6 on page 134.
134.
This is from the Chovos HaLevavos, the Chovot HaLevavot,
Okay.
very famous book on the chapter of bitachon, of trust. One of the most
Trust brings
fundamental.
tranquility.
Yeah.
The benefits of trust in God include tranquility of the heart in the face of worldly worries. One has to find quiet, security, and serenity within this world. As it is written, blessed are those who trust in God. God will be their reassurance.
Baruch HaGever Sheivtach B'Hashem V'Hashem Yivtacho. We say it in the end of the Birkat Hamazon also.
Nice.
So basically, on page 135, you can actually see 4 of the exercises. Basically, one third of the group was a control group. The second third was they did some muscle relaxation, and the third group he made this like spiritually integrated therapy that he created, where it basically told a story about someone trusting in God, some kind of story source from the Torah, from the Bible, and then he had them do an exercise. Like I think these exercises are actually from the actual therapy that he created, like having them think about these things and imagery, and it was a whole thing. I listened to a class with the guy the rabbi who authored this course, and he said that he actually took the therapy, and it was like a CD that you whatever, you just play it and you go through all the things. And yeah, so anyways, he found that kind of cultivating a sense of trust, God really helps overcome different things. And that is that. We're gonna skip text 7 because text 7 basically just explains how his test and everything. But just to kind of move on to the next topic, on page 137, one of the most powerful things is to recognize with this Psalm 23 of King David is one very powerful line of that psalm is Gam ki elech begates almaves le'iraraki imadi, which means that even when I walk in They translated it as like path of darkness, or in the valley of darkness. Even when I walk in the valley of darkness, I'll fear no evil, for you're with me. Meaning to say that King David is not negating the fact that negative things, that negative occurrences happen in one's life. Meaning you would have to be in order to be like a normal human being. Everyone has these challenges. But to recognize that when you have that higher trust, then you're able to overcome it. So that's the idea there. Don't take life for granted, take it as granted. By the way, this is a great one-liner. I know Daniel Levy loves these one-liners, so uh, don't take life for granted, but take it as granted, meaning take life as something that God grants you as an opportunity to overcome. That is a very powerful one-liner, favorite one-liner. We might just skip a lot of a lot of text because we're officially past the 1 hour mark anyways. But I'll just kind of just try to explain it outside, and then anyone that wants after we can just go back through. Okay, bitachon reduces stress, worry, intolerance to uncertainty. You're with me. Ki ata imadi, because you, God, are with me. Right? Okay, 8a. I'll just go through it myself quick because everyone already got a chance to read anyways. So text 8a at 137 is another verse from Psalm say, Meshem mitzadi gever kainanu, that God establishes the steps of man. Why did God bring me here? Our travels are not random. So the ultimate goal is to really value the journey as much as the destination. This is the best analogy that I've heard to really help with this is, okay, there's two people. This is like more of an analogy, obviously. Two people are walking down a path, and these two people walk down the equivalent path. They both encounter a big rock, and one gets really frustrated. Oh, this thing in my way, and and tries to get around it, and just kind of really annoyed and keeps going. The other person is like just joyfully, either climbs over the rock or just goes around it and just keeps going on his way. What's the difference between these two people? Anyone? Don't be shy. Don't be shy. You can say the wrong answer. There's no wrong answer. Anyone? Okay, I'll also say. So the first guy was a businessman who had an important meeting to attend to, and he was going on his way to his meeting, right? And so he saw the rock as a hindrance to what he was trying to accomplish. The second person was a rock climber. And so he's like, wow, I'm a rock climber. So it's a rock. That is what I do. I climb rocks. I go over obstacles. And to recognize that we should all be more like rock climbers in the sense that even if we do have an important business meeting or important thing, to recognize that the obstacles that come into our lives are really not they're not intended to harm us, that it's like a nuisance, but rather it's meant to that we should use that in our divine service, just like this verse in Psalms, that God establishes the steps of man, meaning every step that we encounter, whatever, even if it's something very annoying or that happens in our lives, it's meant to occur to us. This is about taking life as granted, right? That we value the journey as much as the destination, that the rocks is part of the journey of life, what makes it so beautiful. So I'm going to just quickly read text 8b. We should clearly recognize that our travels to different places are not random, God forbid, but specifically directed by God. God's intention is that a particular person has a specific portion to rectify in a particular place, whether through Torah study and prayer, through eating, drinking, and sleeping for the sake of heaven, or through another means of serving God. The Baal Shem Tov of righteous memory explained the verse Hashem mitzadi gaver kainanu to mean that God imparts the desire to a person to travel to a specific place with God's intention being that the person should engage there in a particular divine service, thereby rectifying what this person must rectify. Therefore, when we come to a particular place, one must take this to heart and ask yourselves, why am I here? For what purpose did God bring me here? It is certainly not for naught. So, such a powerful concept. We're literally like skipping through so much, so I like really feel bad. But we're just gonna we'll close
Excuse me,
off.
Yaakov, It's
Yeah.
only 7:20. We're in still good shape.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Oh well, we still have 10 minutes. Woo! You saved me because I saw the Zoom was on for more, but that was because I joined early. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for unmuting yourself and explaining that. Okay, good. So I can have maybe Dr. Seamus, since you saved the day,
Okay.
I'll have you read text 9. Text 9 basically is this story that I need to give the background of the story, and actually there's a beautiful gem video. I can actually probably show gem.tv of the people that got stuck. There's this women's conference that they got stuck in the snow. Right? There's a big snowstorm in the East Coast, and all these women from the East Coast, they flew to Detroit for a conference, right? Never stuck. This is it. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So yeah, this is it. Maybe we'll just watch the video. It's more fun, right? Or should we read the text? Basically, these women, they had this whole convention about how to bring Judaism more out to the world and all these amazing things. And on their way back, they're stuck at the airport, and they call the Rebbe's office and saying, "Hey, we're stuck. We're in this predicament. Can you please pray for us that the blizzard should go away, so we should get back to home, and this inconvenience should go away." And the answer that the Rebbe writes to these women in Detroit is so powerful. That Dr. Seamus will have you read text 9 on page 139, and then maybe we'll also watch the video because we'll have more time now that I rushed. Okay.
The Baal Shem Tov's teaching that every occurrence contains a directive in serving God is a topic that has been spoken of and discussed at length many, many times. I'm sure that you too have given speeches on this topic. Yet now, when an incident has happened to you, example, you're being delayed in Detroit by the New York snowstorm, whose occurrence has a clear meaning and purpose, you seek to attach to the incident most distorted interpretations. For example, perhaps the delay is designed to distress us, God forbid, or how are we going to return home? Anything but the simple and obvious interpretation. The simple and obvious reason for the delay is it's impossible to disseminate Torah.
It is possible. It is
possible, right, to disseminate Torah mitzvahs to a far greater degree than was accomplished during, the convention. You are therefore being granted the merit, the snow, which descends from heaven, of completing the above task with an extraordinary abundance and storm intensity of Judaism, similar to the extraordinary abundance of the snowstorm.
Mm-hmm.
Your efforts in completing the convention's task of disseminating Torah and mitzvos should be extended to the city, the airport, publicity in the newspaper, etc.
Okay, so now we'll watch the video because it's going to do better. Can everyone hear? Thumbs up? Oh, you know what's the problem? Oh no, I've had this problem in the past. When I try to connect it to a screen, then it doesn't let me, for whatever reason, it doesn't let me, oh, maybe now. Yeah, for some reason, it doesn't actually let me see the actual video on the Living Torah. Okay, well, that's a shame. Because you can see it this small here, but you can't. So this is basically, this is a really cool video because you can kind of see the Rebbe firsthand speaking about it, and then the women that the story happened to. They told the story, like you can hear like the sounds of like all the news reports and
in Brooklyn, in the shadow of Grand Army Plaza, some parts of Eastern Parkway are plowed out. But as you can see here, other parts of the parkway are not at all plowed. These cars stuck and good.
Yeah, and then
and they asked my mother to call up 770 and ask the Rebbe for a bracha. They should be able to travel home.
Sorry about you don't get to see the visuals. How about that? Yeah.
Rabbi Klein answers the phone, and she says, we're stuck in Detroit. Rabbi Klein said, "Ein minut," and he goes to the Rebbe. Mrs. Popek keeps asking for quarters and dimes and nickels. Ching, 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 ching. Rabbi Klein comes back, and he says, "The Rebbe will wissen, was heißt stuck."
See what the Rebbe wants to know. What does stuck mean? I mean, how could you
These
be?
are the words of the Rebbe.
A Jew's never stuck.
Monday, Chaf Beishvat. The Baal Shem Tov's teaching that every occurrence contains a directive in serving Hashem is a topic that has been spoken of and discussed at length innumerable times. I am sure that you too have given speeches on this topic. Yet now, when an incident has happened to you, you seek to attach the most distorted possible interpretation. That is absolutely amazing.
So I'll just say that the end of the story is that these women, they ended up writing up a whole story in the newspaper about it, and they ended up making it into a whole like press release thing, and it ended up inspiring all these people about trust in God. So they used it as an opportunity. They were able to transform what was initially a seemingly negative situation into what was seemingly an obstacle into something that's beautiful.
Rabbi Yaakov, so what did they do is that they publicized the fact that they
got stuck, and then they were able to use it in the service of Hashem. And then they also...
And the service of Hashem was publicizing the fact that they had a realization about their bitachon?
Yeah, well, yeah, kind of. And then I mean, I think they also used the opportunity, the fact that they were together, the fact that they were together to more meet and more plan about their next activities that they were going to do to spread Judaism more back home in New York. And so they're able to do all these amazing things. And then the Rebbe was able to write back. It has actually such a popular letter that it actually got published in the set of that I have here at home. It's like a very famous Chabad set of like the talks of the Rebbe. The letter got published in the back of it because it's just such a popular letter. And yeah, I guess, yeah, I feel bad. I don't want to play this whole video because you can't see it, which is kind of, it's you don't get the full part of it, but maybe we'll just the last.
Why don't you send the link to?
Oh, well, I can't really send the link because I pay a subscription to be able to watch it, so it's kind of hard. Anyways, there might be a shorter version that's free that I can share. But anyways, maybe I'll close off by sharing this there's another very famous Hasidic story that's actually one of my absolute favorites that really brings home this point. These two brothers, Rabbi Elimelech of Lezhensk and Reb Zusha of Annapolis, famous Hasidic leaders in their own right. They're very, very famous for their piety. And basically, they're so pious and simple that they would wander around as simple beggars. And they'd go around as beggars, but they would use that as like their way to like help people. They just figure out who's in need, and then they would go try to help those people, and by like disguising their righteousness. And it was very interesting. But anyways, they happened to be traveling with people that were actually, they didn't realize were actually criminals, vagabonds, and they were accused of being thieves, and then the entire group, they happened to be along that group. But anyways, long story short, they all got thrown into jail, and these two righteous, pious Jews along with them, they're like sitting in jail. And in the jail cell, basically what they do is, unfortunately, they don't have a bathroom. So what they did was they had a big pail, a big bucket, and if anyone had to use the bathroom, they had to, in the bucket. And so the whole room stunk. And basically, according to Jewish law, one is not allowed to pray, at least like the formal prayers, like with the talit and tefillin, and like do like the formal prayers, when you have that stench. And when you have the visible like urine or feces in the room, you're not allowed. It's against the Jewish law to pray in that situation. So basically, one of these two fellows, I think it was Rebbe Elimelech of Lezhensk, he got very dejected and he sat down and started feeling really sad. And so Reb Zusha, he said, "Hey, why are you so sad?" He said, "Hey, what do you mean? Of course I'm sad. We're not able to pray. First thing, we're already in this dungeon, in the cell. Next thing, now I can't even pray, like to help me get out of this situation." It's like, but Reb Zusha says, why should you weep? Don't you know that the same God that commanded us to pray also commanded us to not pray when there's when we're in a situation where there's, pieces in the room that you're not allowed to pray. So therefore, it says, Ivdos Hashem Simcha, we should serve God with joy, and we should be happy. So like, oh my gosh, you're right. So they all of a sudden, they got up and like they just started feeling this infinite feeling of joy, and they started dancing like joyously around the room, around this bucket of stench. And the guards are like, "Hey, what's going on over there?" These two guys all these like criminals that are watching, they have no clue what's going on. So they're just like pointing like, "We have no clue." They're just dancing around this bucket there. It's like, "Oh wow, they're so happy about that bucket, and take it out of the room because we'll show them. We'll take it out of the room." So they took took it out of the room, and then they were able to pray. So it's just like, it was just a classic story, one of those like timeless stories to show that really that struggle, that seeming obstacles, that when you go from the perspective of trust and joy, it can actually not only, it can help you overcome and cope with the negative experience, but can actually affect the positive change. And that's a lot of the themes of the Shar B'Tachon Chavos Levavos speaks about, which is an amazing read to do. And then there's another amazing story that I've already told too many stories. But on page 140 we have an exercise that we can do here. Oh, now it's already 7:33. It's already past the time. But really quickly we can do exercise 4.3. Think about a recent hassle you did. Think about what I need out of life at this moment, in that moment, and what needed me at that moment. And the ultimate goal is in our day-to-day lives to help us to go through more of these things. Like, when something doesn't work out perfectly exactly as you plan, how could this be an opportunity to, make the most of it and to serve God and to connect and do something special in that moment that you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So you can take a couple seconds, try to answer that. We haven't had a chance to like summarize our classes, but now that we've covered this lesson relatively quickly, we have so we have there's also some appendix texts that are really great to go through. There's specifically two really great stories in text 11 and 12 about these Hasidic Hasidim that they got called out for their piety, and in the end, instead of seeing it as a negative, they were able to see it as a sign from God and be even more humble in their divine service. So, whereas otherwise, like a normal person like you and me, they would like, I would be offended, like, "Hey, who do you think you are? Like calling me, like, don't you know who I am? I'm so and so, So text 11 and 12 in the appendix are really powerful. But maybe we'll just quickly summarize the lesson, and if you want, after on your own, you can do exercise 4.4, which is kind of just more taking the ideas and really internalizing it. So basically, we spoke about worry. We spoke about Da'age b'leiv ish yashchena, that worry, cast it away or speak it with a friend. or do both. Try to think about other things other than the worry, and specifically when you know, immerse yourself in the words of either prayer or study, then it can help you forget about those worries and it won't affect you as much. I had a great conversation with David Cederbaum in the pacing class on Monday. They said, "Hey, well, I have to catch my flight. I have to catch my doctor's appointment. Shouldn't I be worried about those things?" And I thought that was a very valid point. And what I told him was that there's a big difference between worry, or it's a very subtle difference, I should say, a subtle difference between a fine line between worry and concern. I think it's very important to have concerns. And that a concern is where it stays in your intellect, stays in your mind as thoughts, but it doesn't bottle up and get churned down that it becomes like an emotional worry that could takes over your life. I think that would be the way that I would characterize it. And I'd love if anyone has anything to chime in on about that. But yeah, so that's everything in a nutshell. And then second half, we learned about trust, trust in God. To read the entire Sha'ar B'tachon's highly suggested read to help with that. Some people read it all the time, and yeah. That is that. Anyone have any final comments, questions, concerns?
I was just going to Rabbi, that I agree with you in that worrying doesn't always mean anxiety. Sometimes people have a right to worry about certain things that literally are things that are at that moment very important, that needs to get done. And so it's okay to feel about worrying about your health because maybe you got some news from your doctor that day. So you're wondering what the outcome is going to be. I think all that is very typical. I think where it becomes a concern is when the worrying becomes so futuristic that it's impacting your day-to-day routine, where you can't even make decisions because all you're doing is just worrying about what you think is going to happen. If you make this decision A, then B is going to happen, and you don't know that. And so I think that's where it becomes a bit challenging.
Yeah, no, very good point. Because also, if you think about it, like, you know, what would so there's a bad joke, especially with my mother on the phone. But like, what would mothers-in-law, and bubbies, do if there's no worry, that it's kind of like a grandmother's, like it's like a thing, like you worry, like that you worry about your grandchildren, like that's like the thing you do. Like my bubby, she's always worrying, it's like, that's good, sometimes it's
anxiety, so
she doesn't suffer very. That is, it's actually, I don't know if that's the best example, but anyways, yeah. I actually wanted to get your opinion. Do you agree though, kind of with the point the distinction I was kind of making between worry and concern?
Yes.
Or like, okay, cool. That's kind of, I don't know. That's just kind of, I think that's like a fair way to kind of like.
It's when people are ruminating, it's like when you can't sleep because you've got this thing playing in your head over and over and over.
Yes. I call it the hamster in the wheel, where the hamster just keeps going and going and going, and to the point where some people can't even sleep because it's just going and going. And that's where it becomes a problem. But not so much if it's just run of the mill. I'm just worrying about my rent's due, how am I going to pay for that? Or, I'm not feeling so well. I'm wondering what the results are for my test that the doctor gave me. I think all that is just typical.
Yeah, I know, for sure.
Or you're worried about extreme situations, like my
getting struck by lightning.
This bubby who, if it's winter time, is worried that there's going to be she's worried that there's going to be a snowstorm in the summer. So, it's
that's a problem.
Irrational.
Yeah, I think to be like concerned and aware, is a very valid thing. Like if you're driving, you should be concerned for the guy swerving across the road. Like, maybe I should stay away, but not to like let it creep into your emotion. Like your emotions are such a precious, place in our soul, that we don't want negativity to really enter our emotions. I think that might be a good way to characterize it. Anyways.
Right.
Anyways, Laila Tov, everyone. Wish you all the best.
To those who celebrate.
Thank you. Have a good week, everyone.
Yeah, thank y'all. And
take care.
Have a great one. Okay. Okay.